Okay, so we're live. Here comes the music. All right. Good morning, good evening, everybody. This is, of course, your boy Jay Saunders here with the Urban Investors Podcast. I've got two great guests with me here today that I'm going to introduce in a moment. Today's podcast is going to be a little bit different than what we've been doing before because what we have planned with the individuals on this podcast today is going to be much different than what we've done in the past, right? We've got some engagement, some touch points that we're going to touch on a little bit later. But why are we here? The umbrella purpose of the Urban Professionals the Urban Investors Podcast is to bring you innovative investors and entrepreneurs in this space who are doing great things in and around the community, people that you can touch, people that are accessible to you, who you can learn from and see what they do and learn how to do the same thing. And these two individuals are right in line with that. They're going to be partnering with us on some events that we're doing later this year that we'll get into. So without further ado, I'm going to cut the music and introduce our guests, starting with Mr. Kyle Unwukwe. Kyle, if you could please introduce yourself to the audience, tell them about yourself, about your role in the insurance business and how we even met.
All right.
Because that's always a relevant piece of information.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle Onwukwe. If you're curious, Onwukwe is Nigerian descent. I come from two very splendid Nigerian parents, born actually in Silver Spring, Maryland, but lived most of my life in Charlotte area. Come from a health background, but finance is my game. I'm actually working in the insurance space as an independent contractor, teaching people asset planning, wealth preservation, and how to utilize insurance and advanced planning tactics and strategies. I actually got the pleasure of meeting Justin. We had many different meetings, but the first one was actually at a UPC weekly, one of the monthly meetings. Yes.
Mhm.
And that was about when I first moved to DC.
Yep.
Was back. But I remember he had such a good introduction, good rapport, and I was like, I got to be a part of this. So since that, it's taken off, and yeah, here we are.
It really has, man. I feel like we've been on the phone every week, just touching base, building together. It's been a great dynamic relationship, man. Glad to have met you. Glad that you came into the fold. Really excited for the partnerships that's stemming off from that introduction. So appreciate you. Next, we want to introduce Mr. Keita Klein at Prudential. Who? Why don't you introduce yourself, Mr. Keita, and explain your role at Prudential and what you're doing, even starting to get into the Blueprint to Black Wealth initiative that you guys are pushing.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. And again, Keita Klein, I'm one of the vice presidents in Prudential. I'm a business development vice president in our individual life insurance business. And in my role, I am helping drive a strategy, as Justin just mentioned. It's a growth strategy of ours that we've rolled out in full force since the beginning of January, called Blueprints to Black Wealth. It's a different way of looking at doing business. It's taking a lot of what we've done for a number of years, decades, as a matter of fact, in our corporate and social responsibility areas, and then marrying that to a growth strategy in our actual business. So a lot of times you don't see those two come together. One is over here and the other one's doing their thing from a business perspective. But we've spent so much time in the community and realized there's a need that can be filled in the community. And there's a business case for filling that need as well. So we've taken those two aspects, married them together, and came up with the approach for Blueprints to Black Wealth. Why Black Wealth? Well, it's no secret that historically, Blacks have been separated from some of the wealth building tools, are getting the head start just historically. But we're in a place where we know that Black Americans and Black America is looking to build more wealth, is interested in investing, is interested and knows about insurance as an asset class and looking at it that way, and interested in just growing generational wealth overall. So we wanted to make a concerted effort in doing that. And Blueprints to Black Wealth was born from a number of our leaders. And I'm here to make sure that we can execute on that with partners and independent advisors such as Kyle.
Awesome. Awesome. And we're going to dig into Blueprint a little bit more in a few minutes here. But first, for the audience sake, I want to dig a little bit further into Keita and Kyle, right? Because they know me by now. But tell me, Keita, I'll start with you. Tell me a little bit about your journey that's enough to help the listeners understand what led you to this place of, I guess you could even say it two ways. You could say of being interested in pouring into Black wealth, right? But you could also say of being afforded the opportunity through your company to pour into Black wealth, which is not something that a lot of people can say, that they have been afforded that opportunity to be handed the steering wheel, if you will, to carry that for the company. So please give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you got to this position.
Sure. Well, right out of university, I ended up in the insurance business, maybe not intentionally, quite by accident, but that's neither here nor there. And I absolutely won't tell you the year that I came out of university, because you two young men might be wondering, man, how's this guy keep this baby face? But nevertheless, right out of school, I ended up working in the insurance business, and very quickly saw and started learning and understanding about the power of particularly life insurance when it comes to generational wealth transfer. And not only in death, but the use of life insurance in life.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think a lot of people are still learning about. There are many people who may not completely understand that, but and this will give you some idea of how long I've been here, but over the last 17 plus years, working in the insurance business and in the financial planning and wealth management business overall, you see the strategies and you see them being applied, and you see the markets and where they're being applied to, and how families are actually utilizing many of the advanced strategies that Kyle works with and other our distributors work with. And when you see that, you say to yourself, wow, where are the families in our Black community that are actually utilizing these strategies? And when we think about that, I know many of you, you guys are, and many people are online and they see the stories of the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers and how they've used tools to transfer their wealth, and one didn't do it correctly and they used other legal tools and umbrellas. So all of that, now you start bringing that together. And frankly, again, some of our leaders have gotten together with other leaders and have said, in looking at some of these social issues, right, on the corporate social responsibility side, we've had over 50 plus years of working. Prudential is based in Newark, as you know. So in Newark and beyond, they've done so much work just investing in the Black community in particular. A number of other communities as well, of course, but in the Black community, so much has been done in partnership with Rutgers and a whole host of other things. But then you look at that, you see the need, and then you make a business case for a need to specifically focus on this segmentation strategy. Now, we've done other segmentation strategies with women. We've looked at the Latinx market. Now we're looking at, okay, what do we really need to do in the Black community to drive some outcomes and move the needle?
I love that. I love that. And I wish we could even go deeper into that. And I'm sure we will at future touch points about the level of distrust in the Black community, when it comes to different, ways to build wealth, and just not understanding, right, how these things are used and how other communities are using them and have been using them for a long, long time. So we could go there, but for the sake of time, we won't. But I appreciate that perspective, Keita, to understand like what drove you to be a part of that, and then a little bit of the history of your business and how you guys ended up at this place of focusing on Black wealth specifically, whereas a lot of companies, they won't call that out. So definitely got to give shout out to Prudential, who's specifically, calling that out and making an initiative in that respect.
Yeah, look, I'll add and just say I'll give a shot. There are a few other companies who are doing it. Again, some of our leaders have spent time at various economic forums specifically focused on the state of Black America.
Right.
And out of that came action plans like this in other industries where there's health disparities or otherwise. But this is the birth of some of that thinking as well. But again, what we saw in our corporate social responsibility space, to specifically know that we're good at segmentation, we can do it. And now here's the chance to specifically talk to our Black community and what the opportunity is in the Black community as well.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. And Kyle, man, I know you and I in our weeklies, man, we've gone into it. So we've gone deep on this subject. You are, I would consider, very much a knowledge expert on the history of this and the technicals, right? You bring the story element to it because you understand the disparities and the history of how, this particular segment got to where it is, and the history when it comes to the financial assets and insurance space, and but also, you understand the technicals of it as well. And we've gone there, man. But again, we'll spare the audience for now because we'll have future touch points to get into those details. Kyle, similarly, I want to ask you, and I know a little bit of background, but please tell the viewers about, how you got to this place, how you got to the wonderful, chocolate oasis of the DMV area, and how you got involved with Prudential, and then I want to eventually explain to the audience that relationship that you also have with Prudential, because I think that's going to be an important one for them to understand as they begin to see you more as the face of this initiative within our space. So please start with a little bit of background about yourself and how you got here.
Oh, thank you. I think Keita explained so much of the importance of culture impact, and that's been a passion of mine. I could say in relation, I come from a health background, and that's where I've expanded. I worked as a medical technologist and through the Navy, worked into the private sector, and I went to school to study public health. And I studied in the UK. So when I was in the UK, their free healthcare system was very different for their type of problems that they dealt with, right? In the environment that they were in. It was interesting because whenever they would go to health, they would have a ranking system from 1 to 10, that little chart they used to give the kid 1 to 10, evaluate how bad the pain was. And that pain would also determine how quickly you would be given that service for that free healthcare. Like I remember when an ex-girlfriend of mine, might I say, she had she wanted to have one of her teeth removed, right? And she actually, because she put a lower rating on her score, it meant that it delayed the amount of time, that she actually got the assistance. So it's just an interesting conversation versus how it would be in the US, right? It's not a free healthcare system, but yet it's very, it can be quantity driven, right? And with that quantity driven space, it also makes it so that it's easier to get the healthcare if you have the funding or you have the financials to be able to support that, right? But it also makes it difficult because sometimes people don't have access to that amount of money to cover their health. They don't have access long term because they might be spending a lot of large healthcare costs early on through their lives, that by the time they hit retirement, they don't have the financials to support the long-term care. They don't have the financials that go outside of your Social Security benefits or your funding, and it becomes an issue and a repeating issue that we're seeing in our, in our society now. Especially in our Black society that deals with a lot of chronic illness. So that became one of my drivers. I think paired with my parents. My parents were very risk averse, when it comes to financials. It took them a lot longer. Coming from Nigeria, they knew that they paid for a lot of things flat out when they needed help or when they needed sustenance. But when it came to getting insurance or looking towards investments, it was always more of a risk of understanding what that was, or putting their money into someone else's hands that they weren't always very comfortable with. And sometimes that is a very big, if it's, and also just based off of history, it's been tough at times, especially with the housing market crash and credit defaults. It was a tough point for a lot of people to feel comfortable in different periods of time. So, might I digress? I think the biggest thing for me, what drove me is like, hey, I want to be able to bring value to an area that truly needs it, because it's one that's close to mine. It's one that close to home, because, no matter how much money you make income wise, that income, is it's so, if it's not utilized in a way that's capable of making sure that your retirement is cushioned, especially as we have a compounding space of longer retirement age, right? We're seeing we're living longer, yet we're not keeping up with that. That we need to find different ways. So, what I love about, I've worked with New York Life in the past, and I switched into the asset management space, and that's currently working with Conoco Asset Management, as well as currently with Shirley Lou and Associates, and they both really have that framework of being like, hey, let's learn about how we can utilize these long-term growth strategies to be able to provide cushion to a community that really needs it. And that was the timing, engagement. I got to meet Keita at the summit. He presented, honestly, it was like a brother. I remember we had a conversation at the Blueprints of Back Wealth Summit in Michigan, and he was so candid, because I didn't even know how high up, Keita actually was. Like, this man's making moves in Prudential, you know what I mean? But he was so easy to talk to. Like, we had the greatest conversations, about, just different ideas about what we could do in different facets that, our community was dealing with. And we sat there. I mean, how long were we there? For a few hours, just talking in the hotel lobby. And I think that was the kind of conversations I would love to see more in our community. Like, just that, no arguments, just straight conversations to try to bring value and connect ideas. So
love it. So thanks for that background, and just how you guys were able to meet, and at the Blueprints Summit, where you guys had these touch points and talked about these things. And I appreciate you sharing some of the things that UPC is doing, and we identified an opportunity to kind of come together, and put our heads together to push forward the mission. So I want to switch back to Blueprints, as an initiative, as a strategy, on the part of Prudential, but also being executed with your partners like Kyle, right? Explain that strategy, Keita, for the viewers, so that they have a background on, okay, we hear about Blueprints to Black Wealth, but what are the elements of that are relevant to me, and why should I pay attention? Why now, right? Like, explain that for the people.
So I'll start by saying thank you for saying strategy versus initiative, because initiative makes it seem like, hey, we're doing it for a period of time, and then we're done.
Yeah.
The idea, again, this is a strategy, and a growth strategy, because it has to make it, business sense in that regard as well. But we say we're gonna do well by doing good. There's social things that, if we meet the needs of some of those social needs, we'll do well as a business as well. So we're putting that together. And I think you could go to a number of research areas to find the justification in doing that. Like Kyle mentioned, we had the inaugural Blueprints to Black Wealth Summit in Detroit earlier this year. And that was meant for different arms of our distribution. For Prudential, we distribute through many different arms, because we want to meet the customer where they are. And Kyle, we have an independent distribution arm in which Kyle's firms sit. And so as we brought some of those folks in to have the conversation about what Blueprints to Black Wealth is, how does it look at how to frame the narrative around the opportunity in the Black community differently and understand some of those nuances. We've worked with researchers, a number of people who understand the disparities there, but then understand the opportunity and the aspirations and the contributions in the current market now as well. Yeah. So Kyle is independent. His firm is independent. We have a number of other independent distributors that would come in. They have their choice, their objective. We're just asking them, this is what we're doing. I might never have heard of UPC if it wasn't for Kyle. Yeah. Right? You're his center of influence. It's not necessarily that I would never have heard of it. I'm sure you guys are going to blow up and continue to do what you're going to do. But how much faster did I get here now because of the relationship that he had? Absolutely. So we're asking our distributors, because we have multiple arms. We have our more closely aligned distribution partners as well. But we're asking all distributors, where are you in this space? Can we show up with you? Are you willing to bring us, let people know what we're doing? And if it fits, when you're having that discussion around financial wellness and generational wellness planning, consider Prudential. Right. It's really that straightforward.
Okay.
We're gonna get where we get and fit where we fit, but we want people to know that we're being very intentional and understand and bring the knowledge about how these tools work in the hands of Black families.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. I love the term, and I believe I have heard that. I believe you phrased it, doing good.
Doing well by doing good.
Doing well by doing good. Right. Thank you. And that makes a lot of sense. Now in the post 2020 world, we know what happened in 2020. A lot of companies had to wake up, and Prudential, as I understand, was already on this path to state that clearly. But a lot of other companies definitely had to wake up and understand that it's not just about doing well as a business, but the consumers nowadays they're expecting more. The stakeholders, the stockholders are expecting more. Yeah. So thank you guys for pouring into that. I know that Blueprints has a number of pillars to it, but some ones that I found interesting are, of course, the education piece of it, but also the Black business piece of it. And we're taping this right now in early to mid-September. And in 2 months, we're going to have one of our flagship annual events, Investor Social, that's going to be focused on business, on the entrepreneurship and tech-enabled business, right? So very much so, I think, aligned on that. Can you speak to what Prudential and what Blueprints is trying to do in the world of Black business and spurring Black business?
Well, in the arena that we know, there's a few things that we know, especially in the Black community. One, we're starting businesses at a faster clip, and in particular, Black women are starting businesses at a faster clip than any other segment in America. We know how to help Black businesses and businesses in general transfer their wealth. Okay. Mm-hmm. The tools that we have across the insurance industry, we know how to utilize them to help Black businesses grow once they get to a point. And then it becomes a matter of how do you think about transferring that business? How do you set yourself up with some of the tax advantages that you might be able to find? We don't give tax advice. That's one of those disclaimers that we have to say. But life insurance in particular offers some tax advantages in some instances, right? So it's just bringing those particular concepts to the idea of business continuation, business planning, and business and generational transfer from a business perspective. So once people understand and can get to the point where they're successful business people, a lot of the conversation in the business community, especially entrepreneurship and in the scale in the business world, is about getting scale, which I imagine is some of what your groups will be talking about. Is how do you scale from an entrepreneur or a startup, and where do you get that funding? We're not necessarily getting into the VC part and doing that, although sure, we do have a VC arm. Um, this is what we talk about more is, okay, once you get to certain points, here are some things you should be considering as far as risk management, as far as business transfer, things like, just those concepts that work for specifically for business people that they should be thinking about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then the next question I'm going to toss to you, Kyle, because another part of the strategy of Blueprints is leveraging, partners like yourself, and actually being a pool and a recruitment strategy, if you will, to recruit more independent contractors like yourself to operate in this space.
Yeah.
Can you explain how that strategy also, leads to wealth generation in the Black community?
I mean, it's huge. I think the more representation we have for people that are willing and capable of talking to their community, right? Sometimes we think a lot that you might have a financial advisor that comes from one space and he's trying to talk to another community that they're not a part of. It can be difficult. It can be tasking to not just connect or to share the language, right? And sometimes it can be the financial that drives it because that's universal, right? But then when it's a capacity where in the past you haven't really been able to connect just the financial piece because that literacy might not be there, a component, now you have to try different approaches, and having individuals that can walk into that space and through language and trust with those be able to share to their families and to their friends and to their local community just the power of the different tools, different investment, different vehicles that could provide could provide long-term prosperity, if you will, to and generational wealth is what we're always looking for. You hear that term a lot concurrently, but the aim is that because you don't want it to be where someone strives so hard to pay or take student loans and go to a great college and let's say become a doctor or a lawyer, right? And and after that time and all that work, it doesn't pass on. There's no value that's from that's being carried on to those kids because we don't know trust planning, because we don't know estate planning. We don't know how life insurance works, and we don't know how other investments can be diversified in a benefit that it's always a growth minded approach to the way you think about money. And I think that's, it matters about how you think about money a lot of the times. And
I love it.
It's something I'm challenged with in my day to day. It's been an amazing uphill battle for me, and being in an independent space. And I'm always learning, constantly choosing to learn, constantly choosing to be humble in a space that is revolving a lot of times. So having someone that we get to have that we can put, that can walk into that space is like, hey, I want to learn all of these key things and I'm willing to share to you. And I want you to trust me. I'm going to bring value back because I care about my communities. And the more we get that, the better. I think it would be.
I love it. And that makes a lot of sense, Kyle. It's kind of like having an in to a world that, there's so little representation of, our community. It's like having an insider that's kind of able to say, hey, look, I understand what's happening back here. I understand the shiftings and the ways that people are really using these strategies to generate that wealth and generational wealth. Let me bring you in on that. That strategy makes a lot of sense. We're gonna wrap up with one more question that I want to toss to each of you, and that is, again, we talked about the potential touch point of investor social coming up. Keita, I've given you some background on UPC, so has Kyle. Kyle, you very much experienced it now, having been a part of our community for a few months. So I'm going to first turn to you, Kyle, and then to Keita. What are you excited about with the partnership that's about to kick off between Prudential, Blueprints to Black Wealth, and UPC, and also, Canoe Assets, your asset management firm that you're a part of? What are you excited about when it comes to the convergence of these entities?
Oh man, I think more collaboration just brings better knowledge, and then same times we can always pinpoint, hey, there's a benefit here, there's a benefit here, and you have just that utilization of knowing, hey, this is the right timing. And I think the more that's it's like kind of like we're putting pressure, to, hey, let's do something and let's do it now. I think that that's definitely what Keita would speak to, and what I see what Prudential is looking to do, and that's why it's been a great relationship. I see UPC in just in the way that you've been nurturing, a community that is driven towards that's driven towards success, and yeah, that's and it's a space that even you're learning as you're talking. You're like, yeah, I don't know about this one.
Yeah.
I'm willing to walk into it and learn about it as I'm, you know, interviewing or sharing. I think the value that what you're gonna do is people are gonna echo off of that. I'm excited for the investor social, you know, maybe dance a little bit, same time, meet some good people. Yeah.
There's always that element, man. You're going to dance, you're going to have a good time, you're going to eat some good food, you're going to meet some great people. So
Yeah. Mm.
I'm excited for that as well. And then just to kind of cue up the question to you, Keita, as well. You haven't been around for the duration of UPC, but we're very much so at heart a community-driven, social organization that focuses on relationships. But as of late, people have noticed, we've been really focusing more on that business aspect, on that wealth building aspect. We've covered topics from real estate to different types of side hustles to engaging in the stock market. And now we're here at the entrepreneurial focus of Investor Social and then beyond, right? This relationship is going to extend past Investor Social. So with that in mind, what excites you about partnering with an organization like UPC that has an established presence in the DMV community, is aligned on this Black wealth journey? What excites you about that with Prudential getting involved?
Well, like I said, we're excited to partner and connect because we wouldn't have found you all without, you know, uh, tapping into Kyle's and his firm's center of influence in that regard. But there's a saying that says, you hit what you aim at. And when a number of people are in there with the same mindset, aiming at the same thing,
Mm,
it's very likely you're going to hit that. You're going to hit that target.
That's good.
So the fact that there's a group of Black professionals who are coming to network and learn and understand about these strategies with a mindset that I want to utilize these strategies, and how can I start utilizing these strategies? I think there's a target that everybody's aiming at. That at some point you're going to get a good array hitting that target. So that's what I'm excited about. Hitting that target and everybody coming in with the same mindset. That's where it all starts. And the collaboration that Kyle mentions and creating that trust. Collaboration is so key. We're really good at it. Not we Prudential. I mean, our Black community is really good at it.
yeah.
Most are all about community and trying to bring some aspect of that back together. And so as that learns together, that's gonna absolutely grow, right? 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Mm.
So again, that mindset, that focus, getting the opportunity to help people hit that target, that's what anybody should be excited about.
Hitting that target. That might just be the theme that we carry forward for this. I love it. I love it. We're
Happy to
all
contribute.
look, that's $1 million worth of game right there. I appreciate that visualization. I appreciate that response. I appreciate both of you, Kyle, Keita. It's been a pleasure. I can't wait to experience this partnership and really lean in and build into Black wealth in the DMV area. I want to thank you guys both again. Anything, how can the people learn more about? I'm going to toss to each of you real quick. Kyle, how can the people reach out to you if they're too excited and they don't want to wait for Investor Social? How can they learn more about you?
All right. If you like, you can hop on our website, the Wealth RX Advisor. network.com. You can go and learn a little bit about from the asset management space and the plethora of different specialists that are there to be a resource to you, as well as you can also attend for Shirley Lou for people that are local in the area. Shirley Lou and Associates. She's a huge uh, driver in the space. Actually, Forbes listed on Forbes 50 over 50. I think she's like number 10 currently, being one of the strongest financial BGAs in the DMV area, if not number one currently. And so she's doing big things here in Virginia. That's currently where I am. So I'll just say check that out. Look up her name, Shirley Lou, and yeah, you can find me. I'm gonna start posting a lot more on Instagram.
It's all right, man.
Definitely, yeah, gonna start. So yeah, get on that.
Brand going.
Yes, sir. But yeah, you'll catch me on there in time, and it'll just be my full name that's shared with you.
Awesome. And Keita, feel free to share as much as you want to. But how can the people learn more about you and what even just Blueprint to Black Wealth ahead of our future engagements?
Yeah, we have information about Blueprints to Black Wealth out on True.com, of course. But again, as we work through our distributors, a lot of that information will come through them. We want them to start by having a conversation about what interests them and their values that they're looking to grow on when it comes to building their wealth and getting that started, including the entrepreneurship, including any early planning. That's going to be working with our distribution partners like Kyle and others. But Prudential.com is where we live. You can find just about any and everything. We do have an Instagram too. I think it's just at Prudential, and you can go out and see various things. So follow us on all the socials and everything else.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you guys. That's a wrap for us on the Urban Investors Podcast. We're signing out. Have a good night, everybody.